All right, everyone, how are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, Lisa and I visit with best-selling author Cynthia St. Aubin. Cynthia is known for her paranormal romances and her cozy mysteries. She brings a whole lot of personality to her characters. We chat about her creative journey, her writing process, and the complexities of being neurodivergent in this field. It's a lot of fun getting to know Cynthia. We also got to meet one of her cats. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
I am Cynthia St. Aubin, and I write spicy, funny, mischievous mysteries, paranormal in flavor, contemporary romance, small town romance, but a little spicier. I like to say sort of like a Hallmark movie, but a little dirty. And what else? I'm a foodie, and I'm on my way to becoming a crazy cat lady.
Oh, nice.
Proudly. I say that because at some point, if cats appear in the background or poke their faces in, that's probably an inevitability.
Well, we like that. We like that.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're amongst friends.
Good to know.
Love cats. So where did you grow up?
Oh, goodness. So I was actually an Air Force brat. I was born in upstate, way upstate New York, Plattsburgh. And then we moved all over. We were in Salt Lake City. We were in Death Valley, California. We were in Biloxi, Mississippi. My parents retired in Abilene, Texas. From there, I went to Utah and then Idaho, Colorado,
Wow.
and now New York. So it's I kind of grew up a little bit of everywhere, I would say.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Why Abilene? Why did they decide to retire in Abilene?
I've asked myself this. Why Abilene? I think it kind of has that mellow, medium-sized Texas town vibe.
Yeah.
Where there's all the conveniences, nothing is too hard to find. Neighbors are friendly. They were friendly and part of the community. I don't know that they were ever like that was their dream place to retire, but I do think that they kind of found a comfortable home there.
Did you spend any time there?
So I was in Abilene, Texas from the time we moved to Texas when I was in sixth grade. I graduated from good old Cooper High School in 1998. And so that was a good little stretch. That was,
Yeah, okay.
middle school and high school. It's a pretty formative time to spend in a Texas town, I would say.
There's a taco and burrito place there in Abilene. We always used to go there when we would play there was a bar there we'd all play at.
Which one?
I can't remember, man. It was
I know Ted played at the Longhorn a couple times, actually. That's how he ended up meeting my brother 13 years before we met online, as he was playing. It's a crazy story. But he actually met my brother 13 years before we met online, playing a small town bar, playing a small bar in Abilene called the Longhorn. And my brother Steve also plays the guitar, and Ted's band blew an amp. And so he ran home and got his and brought it back.
Oh, that's nice.
This was in the days of MySpace fan clubs, mind you. My brother joined Space Cadets, my MySpace fan club, and all of that. So, yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know if it's the Longhorn, but there are many bars that were live music venues. Kind of around that time as well.
It might have been that one because it's the one every Dallas fan went to Abilene.
I bet you it was then.
And played there, and then the next morning you'd always stop at that burrito place.
Do you know the burrito place? Because I try to make it home at least a couple times a year, and if it's still there, I'm going to have to visit.
Yeah, I'll text somebody that knows when we get on, and then I'll text you the name.
Please do, because there's not much I will not do for a good burrito or a good taco. That's just fact. That's just fact. It's Klondike bars for some people. For me, it's taco burritos.
Yeah. So a lot of formative years there in Abilene, Texas. How soon did you know that you wanted to be a writer? Has that been something that's always kind of been part of you?
It's really interesting because I recently, when I was kind of going through some boxes and stuff, I found a very old composition book I used as a journal when I was about 7 years old. And I actually started the journal, my very first entry with, "Hi, my name is Cindy, and I'm going to be a writer someday." So I think it was pretty early on, but I kind of thought also that writers were like unicorns or superheroes, or, it's not like one of those, people do this for a living kind of thing. As you grow, we have our first cat arriving. Tail there. As you grow up in the world, sort of disabuses you of the notion that you can be an artist and be paid for it. She's very curious. So I didn't really get serious about trying to write and publish until I was well into my 30s, even though by the time I was 7, I was an avid reader. And I think my desire to be a writer grew out of the fact that I was just the biggest bookworm my whole entire young life. That was every summer, a book a night. I would go through them. So yeah, it's been kind of a wild journey that way.
Was there any one book or author that really said, this is what I want to do? Or
I'm a little embarrassed to admit this. There were several. But when I was younger, it was VC Andrews. And VC, I was obsessed, fangirl, VC Andrews. She's the one who writes about she was doing domestic thriller before domestic thriller was a thing, really, messed up families and dark secrets and scandals. And I was just obsessed. And I read them when I was way too young. But my mom, my mom, I will say, I credit her with my love of reading, because she really did kind of let me read whatever I felt like I was ready for. So I spent many a summer reading VC Andrews, and she was very formative in terms of storytelling. So was Stephen King, which is an odd pairing for like a 12-year-old girl, really. Stephen King and VC Andrews in terms of like major influences, but I would say they were the first two in my pantheon.
So in that time between high school and when you started writing, what is it that you wanted to do then? Did you?
Yeah.
Another
so a little bit of everything. I also love art. Art is it's been a lifelong passion of mine, creating it, looking at it. Artists themselves, I've always been fascinated by. So I actually, I've had, the scene in Wayne's World where he's walking by and he's got like a wall of name tags and stuff. I've had a very interesting career in terms of like jobs I've had, from like forklift driving to being a nanny to be, it's ranged. But I went to college for fine arts first, and then I got a master's degree in art history. And from there, I sort of parlayed the assisting skills, because I was a teaching assistant in graduate school, to being an executive assistant, which is what I did after graduation. It's what a lot of people do after graduation if you have an art history degree. Not exactly one of those where there's like a career path you're sliding right into, So I ended up working in the corporate world for almost 20 years. During the course of that time, that's sort of when my desire to write woke back up. And I wrote my first book sort of on my lunch breaks as an executive assistant.
Cool.
Yeah.
Was there anything that sparked that? Like anything that sparked that first book?
There absolutely was. It's really interesting, the timing of this, like you said, because the very first book I ever wrote went through several iterations, but it started with a woman who lied her way into a job as an assistant to the owner of an art gallery. And as an assistant, managing somebody's life to that level of detail, where I'm like, he's a messy eater, I need to have Tide sticks in my top drawer because he's going to come back from a meeting with something on his shirt, and I need to be ready to get him ready before he goes to see the executive team or what have you. So I thought that the thought that popped into my head one day is, what would it be like if you were the assistant to a werewolf? Like the lint rollers, I'm guessing you'd need. Lots of Tide sticks also. Stain prone. So that's sort of where the idea for that book was born. It was the first book I ever wrote. And it's also a book that it became a series. There are 5 of them now. And it's the series that was recently purchased by Tor. and is being re-released this September on September 9th. So the first book I ever wrote ended up being the book that was the reason I got a book deal, of the kind of dream, the size of dream that I've always had, which is kind of wild and uncanny. But yeah, it was literally that. Like, what would it be like if you had to be an assistant to a werewolf?
That's exciting.
So many situations I could think of, that could be awkward or weird or all of the above.
That's cool. Do any of the characters in your stories have, do they come from your own life?
Absolutely. So I did, with it being my first book, I borrowed heavily from some of my own passions and loves. So art themed, Hannah, who's the main character of the Tales from the Alpha Art Gallery series. She was an art history major, ends up becoming an assistant. So there's some common themes. But one of the one of the characters that's become sort of a reader favorite is actually one of the artists at the gallery, whose name is Steve. And Steve is my brother, the one who met Ted 13 years before I did. And I just kind of like, yoink, picked him up from real life and stuck him right now. He's always been one of my favorite people. He's hilarious. He's quirky, weird, fun. And he's become kind of a reader favorite. And he literally is that guy. He's the exact same guy that I wrote in the book.
That's cool.
Yeah. But always, yes. From everywhere. A lot of the characters are actually sort of like magpied or patchworked from various experiences or conversations or, things that experiences that I've had, that I kind of condense into one or multiple characters.
So has anyone ever come to you after reading one of your books going, that's me?
Is this me?
Yeah.
No, no, thank goodness. And there's only a couple, I think, that I would be a little afraid.
Do you write at your desk always, or do you sometimes do it more unstructured?
I have a writing chair, and I kind of like to recline a little bit. I'm big on the coziness factor, creature comforts, as you can see with my little mini fridge and my lamps, and I have to have kind of a little habitat to get myself in the right mental place to allow sort of the channel to open, creativity to come. But the chair is essential. It's got to be a comfy, big, oversized chair. Because as a neurodivergent person, I'm constantly moving, fidgeting, sitting at a desk. After I left the corporate world, I promised myself that I would never be chained to the desk again. And and that includes the writing process. So I do have one. I just don't generally write there. That's more where I do my administrative work, because that feels more like the work, whereas the writing is sort of the fun, creative, splashing paint on the walls part.
How has being neurodivergent influenced your writing and your storytelling?
Oh gosh, yeah. So I am one of the generation that they call the lost girls, which is actually girls that were raised in the 80s and 90s, when they didn't actually study the effects of ADHD on people that were born genetically female. And I was diagnosed not until I was 40 years old. So I just really, for my entire life, thought, wow, I just am really bad at concentrating and stuff. And I'm a little disorganized. And so it's been interesting in that the ADHD makes it, because writing, the writing process, finishing what you start, getting ideas, writing the ideas down, all of those things. I would say that the ADHD has been sort of like almost a superpower in terms of the creativity component, but in terms of the consistency, I've had to work very, very hard at creating a routine for myself that allows me different days. So if I'm having a high functioning day, I have sort of a routine that I go through, and I know how to leverage those days for maximum output. If I'm having a low functionality day, I have a routine for that too, which includes less of the work that requires me to sit still and focus, and more things like, you really need to reorganize that entire corner, and now you have all this frenetic energy. You can do that today instead of sitting still. But in addition to that, I will also say, I'm very passionate about showing my mess, because I think being an authentic human, showing that you struggle helps other people feel not alone. And I think just as I did, there tends to be this sensibility of like, if you're a writer or you one of these careers that seems like it's not a thing that lots of people get to do for a living. I like people to understand that I'm still so completely I struggle every day to do it right, to do it well. And if you're struggling too, then, come sit by me. Come sit by me and we can be messy together, and that's okay. We're just humans. We're just humans.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So how long did it take you to develop the word discipline when you found out to build these routines? Did it take you a while? Like,
Yeah.
was it frustrating? Was it,
It's ongoing.
So it's still
the process is constantly changing. Yeah. And that's what I would say is allowing myself the latitude to change the structure as needed if something isn't working. Or I go through cycles where sometimes I'm in a book and I want to write all day and I can sit still for 10 hours and I'm in the world and it's coming through me. And then other days I will stare at the screen and just like shake my fist at the sky, and accepting both of those as okay parts of the process has been, I would say, what's taken me the longest. What's taken me the longest is just the acceptance, especially as a late diagnosed person, that it doesn't mean it's not a morally bad thing to struggle with these kind of issues. And so when you take that sting out of it, I think putting the process in place became a lot easier.
So this book that's about to come out,
yes.
Did you have it was the first book you wrote, the first series you wrote. Did you have to go back and rewrite it, or did they just take it and they loved it and they go, but you got to touch it up here?
It's very much option B. So I wrote this back in I started this, it would have been 2007 when I started this book. So it's been those kind of updates, because in the original version she has like a Palm Pilot. You know what I mean? Like there's some and technology changes so quickly. And readers, especially, book talk being such a huge element now of like what makes or break a book, and they're like, "What's a Palm Pilot?" Zennial. Yeah. So there's definitely been some updates that had to happen, some edits, and they have an amazing team looking at it and helping me make it the best that it can be, which I love. You always want your work to be the best it can be. Yeah. So no major rewrites, but yeah, some tweaks, definitely some technological updates, and just updates in general, because I mean, what has changed in the world since 2007 that may not be relevant or may not resonate the way it did back then, kind of thing. So yeah.
What is your favorite part of the writing process? And then also, what is your least favorite part of the writing process?
Question. Okay. My favorite part of the writing process is, I would say, actually the research. And I know that sounds a little weird and counterintuitive. But also because I would say because of the neurodivergent leanings, I love a rabbit hole. I'm gonna dig to the bottom of it, and I'm gonna add on to the rabbit hole. Like I'm gonna expand the rabbit hole into a condo and So I love being able to chase inspiration. I love when I get an idea and you feel that little sizzle of like, oh, this is something. This is a capital S something. I need to follow this. Following where it leads and being surprised, being delighted, being intrigued by an idea. Really feeding that curiosity, and allowing, I've often said that I feel more like an archaeologist than an architect when it comes to the writing process, because it's not like that for all writers I know, but for me, it's always felt like there's a story there and I'm kind of discovering it. I'm uncovering it with my little brush, little bit by bit. And so the uncovering bit by bit, I love that. I love being able to discover a new, like, oh, that's why she did that. And like the whole time, like it's those moments where the inspiration strikes. And for me, that's usually in the research process. So I love that. I do love the writing process is fun too. The actual putting the words on the page and the dialogue and the conversations and stuff like that. But like getting the story, getting the beating heart of it, for me is the magic. Like that's the magic part of the process.
Yeah, I don't know. Living with a songwriter,
Yes.
do you ever get his work in hand and go like, yeah, let me correct this grammar?
It's a really interesting dynamic because with two creative types, you have to be very gentle with each other's art because that there is that aspect of this came from my soul. I compare it very much to like meeting, like, seeing a best friend's newborn for the first time. I, we kind of try to approach each other's work with that same sort of sensitivity of like, this is a creation and it took magic and alchemy and amazing things for it to happen. And if something needs to be changed or tweaked, then finding a gentle way. But Ted is actually, he likes feedback. He asks for it and he can take it. And I would say that I'm kind of the same way. He's always been a great proofreader because he's got that sort of my eye will and brain will fill in words where there aren't any ands and these, and he's so good at catching the little like, did you mean for a thee to be there? I'm like, yes, I absolutely did. Thank you. So I think we've been able to establish a process where we were able to give each other criticism and feedback, but without kind of stepping on, the magic or the sensitive parts of the creation process.
Yeah. It's funny. I've known Ted for 30 years, and you're exactly right. He's really good at taking constructive criticism.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. He does not have that diva ego of like, I made it, therefore it's already perfect. And when he asks for feedback, he actually wants feedback. So I give him feedback. But again, it's sort of like it's about the delivery. It's about the delivery, really.
Always.
I think.
You say you like to push the envelope or, do things a little bit quirky or a little different. So have you ever written something and thought, oh, that's a little too weird, or just full force, whatever it is?
I have 3 books. There are 3 books I've written that are yet unpublished, and they are thrillers. And I love writing thrillers. It's just not anything anyone seems to want to pay me to do quite yet, which is okay. Because you make art that needs to be made and that wants to speak to you and collaborate with you. And I love writing thrillers, but I surprised myself with how easily I could write a sociopath or a psychopath. Or to put myself in the mindset of someone like that. I mean, watching a lot of Dexter definitely kind of gets you in the right mood. But just to be able to sort of, you're like, where did that voice come from? And how much fun it is to construct a character that's that deeply problematic or in some way wounded or destructive. As someone who's sort of like a big squishy golden retriever heart on legs, like it's I surprised myself with how easily I could kind of slide into that mindset. So yeah, it's
really
interesting
neat.
how you can do that as a creative person.
Is there anything readers would be surprised to learn about you? Do you put everything out there, or is
that is a really interesting question because I feel like one of the lines that resonated with me the first time I read Eat, Pray, Love was like, I have the opposite of poker face. I have miniature golf face, which is sort of like, there's no chill here. Like there's masking. Yes. Functionality wise, but if I'm feeling it, you're seeing it. It's like all up front, all out here. So, and I tend to live that same way, where I'm kind of like I'm out there doing my weird stuff, and if you see it, you see it, kind of. What would surprise readers? Actually, yes, I know. I'm incredibly shy. And anytime I'm at a conference and I see readers and I meet them, for me, it's almost like I there's no distinction for me between my readers and my friends. Like if you know me, if you know my work, we're part of a community together, if you like my characters, you're gonna like me. We're already friends. So that's kind of always been my approach. And when I'm at a writing event or a reader centric event, I tend to be very outgoing and, bubbly, but I am so incredibly shy and socially awkward in any other context, that I think if they were to see me in the wild at a kind of event, they would be surprised by like, wow, she's just sitting there and there's no words coming out of her face and she's not moving at all. And because usually I'm like, so I think that would surprise readers.
As an author, as somebody who's in the public eye, you are very outspoken on your social media about certain topics.
Yes.
Do you ever think about it and say, well, I might turn some people off, or you're like, hey, this is me and take it or leave it?
What's really interesting is that was my approach in the beginning of my career was inclusivity. I don't want to alienate anyone. And business wise, just purely from a practical standpoint, in the beginning, it makes sense to not, necessarily reveal those things about yourself that could alienate potential readers. I would say that we kind of, at least for me, with the advent of the Trump era, I reached a tipping point where it's sort of like, as an artist, this is something artists have always contributed to, is the dialogue of what is not okay, what about society. Art has had a vital role in not only documenting who we are, what we value, what we love, what we despise, but also to protest. And being an art historian, having studied art history from the beginning of time to now, it occurred to me that as a writer, I also have that same power. I can use my words, I can use my voice, I can use my platform. And the one thing that I sort of landed on is I have a voice, I can say things. If I can reach even one person, if I can reach even one person by who loves my work but maybe disagrees with me politically, we have sort of an established relationship that then can potentially, because there's an element of trust, if I say something, maybe someone will listen. And then also, I think, especially in times like these, I think it's so important for people to know where you stand, because there are so many communities in just absolute fear and terror right now. And if I, from a place of admitted absolute, I mean, in terms of privilege, I have it. Like I acknowledge that, and it's been a process of understanding how that's informed every aspect of my life. And if I can use some of what I am lucky enough to have in terms of privilege to create change or to improve conditions for any single living being, be it human, animal, plant, I want to do that. I'm passionate about that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the best ways I've ever heard someone put it.
Oh.
Rather than trying to put yourself in the shoes of the oppressed. Like
right.
You're using your privilege as to make one. Yeah. So usually it's not put that good.
Well, and that's the thing is like, I realize that I can't, I don't have their lived experience. I have mine. And there's absolutely no reason other than genetic lottery, luck, circumstance, parent, like a million different factors that I ended up with a very lucky card pull in this life in terms of what makes it harder or easier to be a human and to exist in society.
Yeah.
And to be just handed social currency and to realize that you were handed social currency, and then to realize you can use that social currency to greater effect for those who don't have that, or don't have a voice, or don't have a platform, or who are afraid to speak up or can't. If that's a thing I can do, I want to do that. I want to do that.
Yeah. Are you or your peers in this current atmosphere?
Yes.
Are you worried about being silenced? Are you worried? Because the first thing they go for is arts,
I do.
the creators.
Well, and especially with the rumblings you hear of book ban, not just rumblings, but book banning is a thing now. And Department of Education and libraries being audited and colleges being, defunded, and absolutely. And particularly as a romance writer, as they have targeted, they mentioned things like pornography. Technically, the romance that I write would be considered that. It's not visual, but it's graphic. So if they did successfully do that, then absolutely, my work would be at direct risk of being shut down, which is it's crazy because I was at the FedEx mailing some signed books out the other day, and they asked me something like any dangerous or materials, and I was like, well, not yet, kind of like I'm sending books that this isn't illegal yet, and we were both like ha ha ha, and they were like, huh.
Yeah.
Like it's a joke, but not really, because we're both like, well, yeah, that might be a thing. And we're like, yeah, dystopian times, But that is the environment where we find ourselves. And so I guess the way I've chosen to approach it is I'm just going to keep saying things and putting things out there until I physically, or until it's impossible to do so anymore,
Sounds good to us.
Do you have,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have any hobbies or ways to unwind when you're not working, when you're not in a story?
Yes. I am a crazy plant lady. I love gardening. And moving in with my I call her my fairy godmother-in-law. I also call her Lady Kate. She was a theater actress, an English teacher, a great many things, but she has outdoor space that I didn't have in Queens. So one of the first things I've done is hit up every single nursery I could find in the area. Nice. It's a problem. I'm aware. We're working on it, but again, it's not the worst problem to have. So fiddling with my plants, propagating plants is is my chief source of unwinding, but I do also paint. I still have some of that old, it's more just for me. But to do that as well, to go painting is fun because it's a creative medium without words. And I kind of just work with colors. So it's interesting to go nonverbal. And fiddling with my plants and painting allows me to not do the words and just to get my hands dirty in one way or the other. So it's a nice balance that way.
Yeah, that is.
Lisa and I spoke with Adam Clayton of the band U2, and he really enjoys gardening as well.
Really? Oh, kindred soul. Yeah. There's something so meditative about it. And just being around growing things, and for me, every new leaf I get excited about. And I know that's silly, but especially like plants that have any kind of variegation, or like a monstera that the leaves may have different holes than the other. I'm like, ooh, look at the hole on that one. That's interesting. Like, oh, look, it's got a cool pattern. Like I'm so delighted by little things like that. It really, like that restores my soul.
That's cool.
That's awesome, man. That's
awesome.
So I was going to ask what's coming up next for you, but we know, is there a planned release date for this series? Is it going to be released all at once, or?
So they're doing the first 3 books. Sorry, the pollen does make me wheeze a little. Still have my window open. the first three are going to be released in September, October, November, and then they'll kind of do a little mini break, and then I believe it's early next spring for the next two, and then I'm working the next book I'm working on is book 6 in the series, which will come out at the end of next year.
Well, we really do appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, this was
It's such a pleasure. Absolutely.
It was a long time in the making, and I'm glad we waited.
Well, I've won oddly enough, since Dallas. That's when you and Ted did your session.
I came to your apartment.
You did, and I remember overhearing that conversation and thinking, man, I want to do that. So it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
But how interesting and fun that we get to do this now when I'm on the East Coast. We're on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
The book series has been bought and is being re-released, and
good timing.
Like you said, I think the timing is purposeful. So,
yeah. And I'm glad we waited, because Lisa wasn't doing these interviews with me back then, and it took lots of
convincing.
You got to do convincing, but now she's here, so I'm glad we waited.
I'm so glad too. It's been such a pleasure. Absolutely.
Well, we loved having you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yes.
We have one more question.
Yes.
Bernie, hit it.
You know what? It's funny. I'm going to ask this question. It's the one time I ever forgot to ask this question was with Ted.
Oh my gosh.
The podcast is called Is Breakfast Included? And if we were having breakfast, what would you have?
Ooh. So I know you said breakfast, but I am a brunch person because I really enjoy the addition of savory, like more savory elements. Anytime you can incorporate things like fried chicken or steak into breakfast, I'm all about that. So I would say likely a brunch assortment of both savory and sweet things, but I love to make a good cooking. That's the other thing I do to unwind. I love to be in the kitchen. I'm like kitchen witchery, alchemy, puttering. But I make a mean quiche with Gouda and pancetta and fresh spinach. So garlic, onions, red onions. Yeah. So probably some sort of tasty quiche, a pastry or two, most likely, because we love the pastries. And at least some sort of like butter clotted cream or jam.
Okay. Yeah. How about a coffee?
I know that's
or
very
tea?
Ooh, Earl Grey tea.
Okay.
Earl Grey tea is my jam. I love the bergamot. And obviously I don't suffer from a lack of energy. So caffeine, I have to be very careful with how much of that I introduce to my system. Otherwise I become like a cracked out squirrel kind of. So tea is about my speed.
Well, Cindy, we appreciate you taking the time. It's been really good talking to you, getting to know you some more. And man, we wish you nothing but luck.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure for me as well.
So nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Have a great day.
You too.
Right on. Cynthia St. Aubin. Pretty cool, huh? That was a lot of fun. If you want to find out more about Cynthia, you can visit her on Instagram at Cynthia St. Aubin. She has a link tree there that you can link to everything. Don't forget, she has a new series coming out. It's Tales from the Alpha Art Gallery. It's being released on September 9th through Macmillan Publishing. Check it out. While you're online, visit isbreakfast.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook from there. Rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Slide on over to YouTube and subscribe to our show. Check out some of the older videos, man. We have a lot of good ones. I promise I wouldn't steer you wrong. And of course, throw us some bones and pick up a shirt. I'm done. Have a great day. Talk to you next week.